The gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Johnson, for his opening statement.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Chairman, for holding this very important hearing on such short notice. And I also want to thank the witnesses, particularly Reverend Schenck, for being here today. And I appreciate the time that you all have spent here. We were supposed to get started at 10, but we had some things going on the floor that prevented us from meeting at that time. So I appreciate your forbearance. For years, I've been writing and warning about an ethical crisis at the Supreme Court, and I've introduced legislation to address it. Not just one, but more than one piece of legislation. And I've chaired hearings on it in my court subcommittee, more than one hearing. And I've spoken about it repeatedly on television, online, in person, to news anchors, experts, and activists. And I've been raising the alarm, and after almost 2 Congresses, here's where we are. 2022 has seen more scandals of greater magnitude seeping out of 1 First Street than in any other single year in recent memory. Yet, what has been done? Unfortunately, we haven't seen any action from the United States Supreme Court itself. Certainly, they have every reason to want to address this crisis. Their job approval rating is the lowest it's been in the court's entire history. Record numbers of Americans think the court is too powerful, too partisan, and far too unaccountable. And public opinion matters to the court because it is the public who must respect and abide by the court's decisions, especially decisions they may disagree with. That the court itself is unwilling to hold itself to standards equal even to those for lower court judges, members of Congress, and the executive branch makes matters even worse. It took pressure from congressional appropriators just to get the court to admit that it was even considering an ethics code, but that was 3 years ago. I'd say it's been only silent since then, but that would not be true. It's been scandals. It's been Federalist Society speeches behind closed doors. It's been secret dinners with secret donors. The court either cannot or will not do what is in its own best interest. So therefore, Congress must step in. The Constitution and the American people, for that matter, have entrusted this body to make the laws necessary to preserve the national well-being. A nation whose highest court was secretly and successfully infiltrated for over 2 decades by activists whining and dining their way to the legal outcomes they want, is not the hallmark of a healthy nation or a healthy democracy. So the answer here is not revolutionary. It's to impose a written code of ethics that would require justices to report more gifts more often and ensure the justices are not deciding cases for their friends and family members. My Supreme Court Ethics Recusal and Transparency Act, H.R. 7647, would do all of this. My friend and colleague, Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, led this effort by introducing the CERT Act in the Senate. Chairman Nadler has passed the CERT Act out of the House Judiciary Committee last May, and now the time has come for this legislation to be passed by the full House. I have every expectation that what we hear today will reinforce the already strong case for serious ethics reform at the Supreme Court. And I encourage my colleagues on both sides of the dais to hear this testimony in the appropriate context as only the most recent of the court's many ethical lapses. I hope you will be moved to stand up, do your constitutional duty, and do what we must do to keep our nation healthy and strong, not only in the short term, but for the next 250 years. Again, I want to thank the witnesses for being here today, especially Reverend Schenck, our whistleblower, for shining a bright light on the need for Supreme Court ethics reform. Thank you, and I yield back.